She is the chairman of the Young Republican Federation of Virginia. And yes, she is a candidate for Young Republican National Chair. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Eden. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Oh, I love what you have behind you. You're getting set and ready. Oh my goodness. So great to have you here at Common Sense America. Thank you for being a new feature on this podcast. And as you just heard a little bit of my end of my commentary with Jersey, one of my favorite states. And so glad to have you. Jessi, tell us just a little bit about yourself. I gave the audience a fun couple facts that you are from upstate, that you were homeschooled, and that you attended Regent undergrad and your master's program. And those are three fun things I absolutely just love about you. So welcome.
Well, thank you. And, it's nice to be on right after New Jersey. We have a lot of kinship to them in Virginia because we both have off year elections. And so this year I'm gearing up for our state house and Senate elections here in Virginia. It's one of my favorite things about being involved in the Young Republicans is helping people become trained to run for office, get excited to run for office, and then also support other great candidates, whether they're Young Republicans or not.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get into it, though? How did you come from upstate New York, which is a completely different type of environment and beast in itself, similar to Jersey in many ways? How did Virginia come into the scope? I mean, how did that all happen?
Well, so I moved to Virginia to go to Regent University in 2014, and I was excited to be moving to a purple state from a deep blue state. Now, unbeknownst to me, Virginia stopped being a purple state for quite a long time right after I moved there. So it was a tough couple of years to get involved. I really wanted to be involved in politics, but I didn't grow up in a particularly political family. I didn't really have any idea how the process worked in terms of campaigns, elections, even lobbying and legislation, grassroots efforts like that. Yeah. So when I came to Virginia, I really just wanted to dive in head first and learn everything about the process. And because of that, I wound up really enjoying my work with the Republican Party and my work with volunteers across Virginia. And so that's where I've decided to plug in.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. So talk to us about your current role now, and that you are a candidate now. So what are you doing as the current role? And one thing that does stand out to me in our conversation is that you are looking for powerful, young, conservative candidates. So talk to me more about that role, and then let's talk about your upcoming candidacy and what that looks like.
Absolutely. So as the state chair for the Virginia Young Republicans, I have a couple different roles. The first one is that I represent my Young Republican Federation and all of our members to the Republican Party of Virginia. And so we have a central committee that makes a lot of decisions about how Republicans invest strategically in Virginia. And one of my jobs is to be a part of that conversation on behalf of younger voters and to make sure that they're prioritized. Mm-hmm. The second big job I have is club development and membership development. Mm-hmm. And so that includes starting new chapters across Virginia, helping support their mission, making sure that they have resources to train their members to be really effective, and putting together statewide initiatives. We do regular deployments, which are weekends where volunteers from all over Virginia and sometimes all over the country will go to a very, very competitive district in Virginia. For instance, we went to Jen Kiggins, we went to Yesley Vega, we went to Huncow in Virginia. Yes. They'll go knock thousands of doors in a weekend and just kind of blitz it. So part of my role is to organize that type of event. Also for candidate training or candidate recruitment, I've helped to organize those initiatives that we've done to really try to fill out all of the seats that we can for Republicans. Yes. And then lastly, and then this ties into the next question, I guess.
Yes.
My role is to represent Virginia to the Young Republican National Federation.
That's so.
I work with a National Committeeman and Committeewoman who are excellent. And we are similar to the regular RNC, the 168, which I know a lot of people have probably heard about recently with the race between Ron McDaniel and Harmeet Gillen. Yep. So we have a really similar role to what I guess the big party, as you might call it. So trying to make sure that Virginia gets support and resources from our national federation as well.
Talk to me a little bit about the presidential scope in the state of Virginia. Everybody's popping up, and we just had CPAC last week, and the Club for Growth was last week, and all these other groups are popping up with their different conventions, and early and now, and DeSantis is on his book tour, and Trump spoke at CPAC, and you have Haley out there, and you have other names being thrown in like Youngkin potentially, like Tim Scott, Pence. What are your thoughts from the Virginia standpoint as it pertains to all of these names hopping in? And I know Youngkin, like you told me on the phone, one and done as governor until not consecutive, and I didn't know that. I did not know that until you had mentioned that to me. So talk to me about that. What will that look like for the state of Virginia, depending on who ends up, if he does declare, or if he doesn't, who are they kind of feeling like they want to push for, or is it kind of broken down the middle? Because I'm hearing that from a lot of people.
Yeah, well, certainly it's early. And I will say we love our governor in Virginia. We're very, very excited to have him. And for those outside of Virginia who don't know, the governor of Virginia actually only gets to serve one term consecutively. So he could not run for reelection. No governor can run for reelection in Virginia. So there is some question as to whether or not he'll consider it. I won't pretend to know the answer and what he's going to decide. In terms of our voters, I'd say there's right now still a bit of a split. I've heard different folks for different people. Certainly Trump and DeSantis seem to be polling nationally the highest. And I think that that's reflected in Virginia in the Republican base as well. However, I think there's a lot of folks here in Virginia that are waiting to see who else announces and how debates go and things like that. One of the things that I would love to say about Virginia is that we're a confidently red state. But we're not. We're still very much a purple state. We have 3 fantastic Republican statewide elected officials. We won control of our House of Delegates in 2021. But this year, all of our state House and Senate members are up for re-election. We could lose control of the legislature, or we could get a trifecta government for the first time in 10 years.
So, yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, I would love that too. And it's possible. It's going to be a very tough fight. But in terms of 2024, from the party side, one of the things that we're certainly confident of is that if we are able to make Virginia a trifecta state, I believe that Virginia will be a great candidate for investment for future political races. And that's what I'd love to see for my state.
No, that's fabulous. When you had mentioned the trifecta, we had Matt Strickland on the other day, who's running for Virginia Senate. And he mentioned something very similar in regards to we have got to keep all the houses. We've got to keep everything going for the Republican ticket. And I was very impressed with what he brings to the table, as well as Jonathan Emord, who's running for United States Senate for the state of Virginia. So you guys have a lot of hot elections coming up.
We do. And we have many Senate candidates who have already announced for 2024, which is great. I appreciate that. I'm excited to see them all out campaigning this year. And again, I would love to kick Tim Kaine out and to take our Senate seat back as well. But we really need to prove our case that Virginia can be a red state this year if we want to see national investment from groups like Club for Growth or for any other group for that matter.
Yeah. Talk to me about, we have just about 5 minutes left, so I want to get a couple more public policy issues in with you. What are some of the issues that face the state of Virginia that you're more concerned about, that really stand out to you? Is it education? Is it our veterans? Just to give you examples, what are, the top 3 things from the policy viewpoint for the state that need to really be talked about?
Yeah, so I think there's a few issues that need to be talked about. First of all, the governor laid forward when he campaigned some priorities in terms of cutting taxes, the gas tax, the grocery tax, the income tax for families, and those have not been able to be accomplished because of the Senate. We've been able to get some things done, but because we don't control the Senate, we're not able to make the same sort of impact on reducing taxes for everyday Virginians that we wish that we would have been able to. So that's something that's still in negotiation. This year, there's going to be more budget amendments. We're negotiating for even more tax cuts on top of what we were able to get last year.
Okay.
But it's going to be difficult, and we really need the Senate to be able to pass that.
Okay.
The second thing in Virginia, of course, is education.
Right.
We were the center of the whirlwind in 2021, where everyone heard the stories coming out of Loudoun County and Fairfax, and
I remember that well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we're in a phase where we're having to really root out all of that corruption, all of the cover-ups, figuring out exactly what has been done to our schools in Virginia and begin the process of reversing it. That's something that the governor's administration has been working on. That's something that our legislators have been working on. It's something that our attorney general has been working on. Yes. And so we're very happy to have that team, but it is a lot of work to do, and it requires a lot of volunteers. I was speaking to a candidate the other day for state senate in Virginia. She's actually a school teacher in Fairfax County, and she's a conservative. And so it's really going to be about having a coalition between parents and our elected officials and our candidates to continue to work on that issue.
Yes. And what would be the third issue? You said
sorry.
You're good.
So the third issue, I would say, and this is sort of I don't know, personal and a little bit wonky.
Sure.
But one of the things that a lot of Virginians don't know right now is that Virginia is signed up to be just as green and energy efficient as California. In fact, whatever California passes in terms of state-based Green New Deal policy, we actually, in our previous administration, we signed up to copy them. So that's something that kind of skips our legislature at this point. So right now, the governor and the legislature is working on making sure that that's no longer the case, that we're not tied to California's emission standards, electric vehicle standards, all of those things. And so this is important to me because when I look at this issue, this impacts our future very much as Virginians. This impacts the cost of living in the future. This impacts the cost of energy in the future. So all of these things and the ability for businesses to come here and see it as a long-term place to invest. So that's a priority for me this year, and I'd like to see that reversed.
What can the governor and the state legislature do to unturn that? What does that look like in layman's terms? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the governor has already signed some executive orders, although the governor in Virginia is relatively weak compared to some northeastern governors. New Jersey governor, definitely more powerful on that front. But what the Virginia legislature can do is basically pass different legislation to say that we are no longer complying to these standards, we're complying to our own standards. So what they can do is repeal what we previously had and put something in there that creates our own guidelines based on what Virginia's needs are.
Do you, and this is just, do you keep this in your back pocket? Are you aware of other states in and around Virginia that are also tied to this California bullcrap?
I haven't done a ton of research in terms of regionally, but I do know that there's a lot of other states that have followed on to this nationally. I have a friend who is involved in Vermont politics. I know that they're tied into this as well. States like Colorado, states like Arizona is even considering this, although they haven't done it yet, right? But there are states across the country that are looking to California and New York both to set their emission standards. And, where we have Democrat legislatures in control at the state level, they're working to tie their states that might be more conservative than that, generally speaking, to California's legislation so that it's easier for legislators to, pass that by without voters knowing.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, on that note, I'm thankful that you raised that awareness. I'm going to send this clip far and wide because I think a lot of people are very unaware of that. You have everyday Americans who tune into the show. You have kitchen table discussions. You have mom and dads who just want to get through the day, put food on the table, make sure they have gas in their tank, and make sure their kids are actually educated properly and not indoctrinated with woke culture. So, I sit there and say, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for raising the bar on that because we're just 3 hours away from the state of Virginia. What does North Carolina look like? And then I sit here and say, grew up in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is under a communist regime, as I sit here and say. And so what are they doing with that aspect of it, following in New York standards or following California standards? So there is a lot to be talked about and more on that issue. I'd love to have you come back. What is your election for this great opportunity, and what can we do to support you?
Yeah, so my election for Young Republican National Chair is August 16th through 20th in Dallas, Texas. We have a convention. There's about 1,000 delegates from across the country that are Young Republicans that get together to elect our next slate of leaders. So if you're interested in supporting me, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and feel free to check out our website, yrnfascend.com. So that's yrnfascend.com. You can read our platform. You can look at the members of my team that we've announced, and you can look at what we'd like to do with the Young Republican National Federation. So we'd love to have your support.
Oh, thank you. I have your Twitter account going at the bottom. It's been scrolling at the bottom the whole time you've been on this interview. So for all those who are tuning in here at Common Sense America, make sure you hop over to Twitter. If you're not a Twitter follower, if you're not on the Twitter platform, have no fear. We will share everything with you of what Jessi is doing, just because of how important it is for every